Good afternoon. Guys, in my role running Omaha Productions, I work primarily with Peyton and Eli Manning. Eli was here earlier today, and he talked about his transition from football to media. Cal, I want to start with you. Some athletes make the transition from successful player to successful businessman, and some struggle. I think Eli and I have talked a lot about what allows you to have success in that transition. And the first question I want to ask is, what from your playing days, what from being a professional athlete has allowed you to have success in the next act?
Well, I wish it was really simple so I could say one or two things. But it is interesting, all the time that you spend playing sports, from a very early age, you dedicate all your time to that. You have a full career. I played 20 years, 21 years with the Orioles. And then you retire at 41, and you figure, okay, what can I do now? I mean, at first I was going to just play golf and stay in my pajamas all day. But that's not very rewarding, and I thought you have an opportunity for a second career. And I think how my brother Billy, who had retired a little bit earlier than I did, and similar to the Mannings, is you kind of look at the landscape and say, okay, what do I want to do? And I didn't look at it as part of a business opportunity. It was a little more philanthropic, I think, in the beginning, that you wanted to help kids enjoy the game, teach the game, and then you quickly realize that it has to wash its own face. It has to do it. You can't just keep putting money into it. And so we built a good, successful kids business, learned along the way. It did feel like we spotted everybody 20 years in the business, and many times I had to sit down and start to think, what value came from sports that I can apply now? And certainly, in playing baseball, it was an everyday occurrence. And so your work ethic, spending time every single day. I love the fact that sometimes you would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and have to make a note. You had a good idea about something was happening. So you just immerse yourself into it. You learn by trial and error. And I think the frustration of baseball, where you're failing most of the time as a good hitter, you learn to deal with those failures, and you learn the most actually from making mistakes. And so I think we applied that kind of learning. It's okay. And the grind is what most people look at baseball and say, Saturday and Sunday was the same as Monday and Tuesday, in my life. So that translated really well to business, that it's all consuming, and that you put all the time and effort into it. And then you get the model right. And then once you get the model right, then business becomes a little easier.
Awesome. David, turning to you, I'm going to read because there's a lot here. You are the co-managing partner of the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers and the NHL's New Jersey Devils. You also have something called Global Football Holdings, which owns 25% of MLB's Cleveland Guardians, and you're a limited partner of the NFL's Washington Commanders, making you the first person to own team equity in 5 major sports leagues of North America. Pretty awesome. But for the panel today, we want to ask you about something maybe a little less famous, your involvement in youth sports. Tell us a little bit about what you see as the opportunity in youth sports.
Thanks, Jamie. It means I watch a lot of games on my phone, too many according to my wife. But I would say, look, from a business perspective, I originally thought about it as a parent. So I've got 5 kids. I've been on every field, pitch, court, ice that you could possibly imagine, diamond. And so seeing the whole youth sports ecosystem from that parent lens started to get me thinking about, like, can and should this be done in a different way? And what can I do to be a part of that? And the first thing I realized, which is obvious, is that it's probably as fragmented as any industry you will possibly see. Literally, with the exception of Ripken, I have not looked at another business that wasn't effectively pretty much a mom and pop business. Generally undercapitalized, doing great things, okay, on the fields and the courts, et cetera, but really, sort of more bootstrap businesses, really small, could use capital, could use branding, could use, frankly, consolidation, which is something just with my business hat on, seemed pretty obvious. And the capital piece seemed quite obvious as well. So we sort of stumbled our way into our first investment, where we met the founder of something called Cooperstown All-Star Village. It really ticked a lot of boxes in terms of he had done an amazing job building this business over 25 years, but it was undercapitalized. There was not a lot of management. He did an amazing job, but they literally didn't even have a database. They didn't have a database of the kids and the families who came through the facilities every year, which just seemed like, wow, there's so much that we can do here. So we made that investment during the pandemic, which was a scary time for a lot of reasons, but to buy a business that, effectively, or buying a piece of a business that wasn't even operating was quite scary. And then the second thing after investing in that business was I had met Cal Ripken and his brother Billy over the years. I would have loved to invest in their business even earlier, but they weren't looking, for a partner at that point. But in any case, to state the obvious, Cal was an idol of mine as an athlete, but you already hit on it. Like what Cal was able to do and Billy post their careers was just incredibly impressive to me. And my kids played at plenty of Ripken baseball facilities, and they did it right. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, so we bought this first baseball business. If there's any way I could partner with the Ripkens and have their ethos and how they look at it, which is very community-oriented, very instructional-oriented, amazing experience. They're not cutting corners in any way. Wow, that would be great. So I remember trying to get Cal and Billy in a room, and eventually they were like, all right, yeah, we'll sit down and talk. And over the course of a couple of months, we all got to know each other a lot better until I think Cal and Billy felt very, very strongly, as you can imagine, about their partner and what they would bring to the table. Again, they have the best brand in sports. And so to be able to, so effectively letting somebody else be part of that equation, I know was not the easiest decision, for Cal. But it was great for us and continues to be. Imagine being in the youth baseball business with the Ripkens. Like, it doesn't get better. And so from there, we started crafting a business plan to continue to grow from a baseball perspective. And at some point in time, we started to bring in additional management into the equation, additional technology into the equation, et cetera. And we took a view that, wow, we should be in other sports other than baseball. Similar theses, to be honest with you, in terms of the fragmentation, the capital, et cetera. And so then we went into the action sports business. And then we went into the flag football business. And some of the businesses that we bought also have some little pieces of soccer. They have some pieces of lacrosse because they're fields, et cetera. But our ultimate goal is to basically be in a variety of verticals, whether that's 5, 6, 7 verticals, and have the best business in each of those youth sports areas. I'd like to think we do have that today in baseball. We still have a long way to go in terms of what we can, in terms of the building of that business. But starting to build out the other verticals is something that, again, just one last thing, because I'm going on too long, is, as an example, it enabled us to bring in, Andy Campy, and some of you know Andy in this room. Andy was, 17, 18 years at Nike, their COO. To be able to bring Andy into this business, like, we would not have been able to do that if A, we didn't have the kind of partners that we have in the Ripkens, and B, we didn't have the ability to scale the business over time and have capital behind it.
Samir predicted there'd be 30 seconds remaining when he got a chance to speak. We hit the over. Blitz said, talked about some of the challenges for during COVID. And Samir, I know that sort of probably rings for you as well. You guys went through a pretty significant pivot during COVID. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, real quick. And for anyone who doesn't know, GameChanger streams more sporting events than any organization in the world. We cover this year between 7 and 8 million youth sports events on our platform. First week of March 2020 was really tough. GameChanger is wholly owned, a formerly independent startup, wholly owned by Dick's Sporting Goods. We operate here in New York. And as is well known, no one knew if their businesses or governments or lives or families would be safe. Our parent company as a retailer was shutting down stores because every municipal government said everyone needs to go home. We were asked by our parent company to furlough 75% of our team of 50 people at the time. And it was a Friday, it was like the 26th of March, and I called up our oversight at Dick's and I said, we do stat capture at the time, stat capture and scorekeeping for baseball. That was the origin of the company. We were doing a few million games. What if we added video and we made it a professional experience? And let me keep 80% of the team, which was only like 20, it was like, I was like, if we furlough 80% of the company's done, right? because there's no one to do anything, and those people aren't coming back. And by the way, these are a bunch of engineers, and I'm pretty sure they can find another job. So in a 2-hour period, we made the pitch. They said, if you can do it by Labor Day, we'll agree. I got off the phone. I called up my head of product and engineering. I said, can you do this by Labor Day? And the only answer is yes. You have 1 hour to tell me. I called them back, said yes. And today, as I said, we stream more games than any famous broadcasting network, or obviously different types of games than pro, but and we do it on our phone. You know, you can do it on your phone, and 110 million highlight clips were created by moms and dads, like people here, so you could connect with your kid when you can't be at the game. So it's just a company-defining moment in a couple hours, and I guess that's just what COVID brought out in people, and you had to look for the opportunity at that moment of, you know, real uncertainty.
In 2024, if you're talking tech, you're legally required to talk about AI. So Samir, tell us a little bit about what impact could AI have on your business, and what's the opportunity?
Sure, and look, there's so much buzz, right? Everyone's talking about it. We're a team of technologists. We like to build things that really help. AI to me is table stakes in sports, and it will be, and if you're not working on it in a real way, I think people should be. I'll tell you about our vision, and I think it probably applies to other people. We want you to be able to point a device at a game, whether it's a field, a diamond, a rink, a court. You're a coach, you're an assistant coach, you're an equipment manager, whoever you are, press a button on your device and capture all of the content and the highlights and the value that you need as a coach, whether it's film review in basketball or other highlights, all the stats. We think that can all be done automatically. I don't know how many of you trust this, but you know, your Tesla will drive itself for the most part. That's computer vision. It's just looking at the world with AI. And to us, the unique thing to do that is really the data, the video. So that's what's unique. If you can collect a unique data set of video in these sports, you can train these models, and you can get a computer to look at the world. At the end of the day, we're serving coaches. Many are volunteers. Many are parents. They're really busy. We want to make their lives easier. We think this does that, because then they don't have to sit there and kind of with their phone. They don't have to capture stats on a piece of paper. They don't have to go home and, you know, fire up Excel and calculate, you know, wins above replacement or whatever. They can just, it's all done for you. So you can spend more time coaching, spend more time being a mom and dad. I mean, ultimately, I think that's what youth sports is about.
Blitz, you're an owner across all these different sports, and now we talked about Unrivaled today. I guess I'm curious, what have you learned about what it takes to be a good owner? Now you've had so much experience on it. And then are there any misconceptions about that role?
You're making the assumption that I'm a remotely good owner. Look, here's the most important thing, and it's actually a fun fact. Every single person who's ever come to me that says, Blitz, I want to buy a sports team, or I want to invest in a sports team, any advice, what do you think, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Two things are true. The first is that I don't get into like the person's balance sheet, to be clear, but so let's just assume that they have the liquidity and the means to make the investment. Without question, I say make the investment. Like, you will be really happy that you did, okay? And every single person that I've had that conversation with remembers it and has come back to me over the years to say, thank you for that advice. I was on the fence. I didn't know what to do, you know, X, Y, or Z. And then the second is that I say, do no harm. Do not do anything in your first year. I don't mean like don't do anything, meaning don't make any major decisions personnel-wise, go out and get the first shiny free agent that you can for the most money. Like, just watch the team, get to know your personnel, get to understand the league a little bit better, et cetera. But don't make any major decisions and commitments in that first season. And without fail, every single one has completely disregarded that advice. Without fail. And I mean, some has worked. People have made some good decisions in their first year, don't get me wrong. But in general, I think they've made more poor decisions during that first year as you're getting your feel for what this is all about than particularly good ones.
Cal, are you taking that advice as a new member of the Baltimore Orioles?
I'm trying to take in all the information. I was fascinated by mapping out, you know, kids' fields and all that kind of stuff, because I'm overwhelmed a little bit by the analytics at the big league level right now, and all the different ways that you're pulling data in, and how do you use that data. And I'm from, my greatest contribution is that I played the game and I understand situational baseball, and there are holes in there that you can fill in and decide which things are more important in teaching the game, which ones are more important in learning, and then actually executing, especially when it comes time for the playoffs. So I love the analysis and the data, and I'm just, in some ways, just learning as you go in, because the player's view is a lot of times from an ownership standpoint. The owners come in, they made their money someplace else, and now they want to make baseball decisions. And they're not really capable of making baseball decisions in general, so you have to get good baseball people, kind of rely on them. The general guidance of the owner is really great. And you know, I think what you guys heard from David Rubenstein early on, I think he's the perfect owner coming in for the Orioles right now, because he sees it as he's the steward of the franchise that has history, and he's collecting, you know, Mike Elias is our key baseball guy. He's bringing the baseball guys in and allowing them to make decisions, but make no mistake about it, he's involved in all those decisions, and he's going to give the right direction for the whole organization, which I think is extremely valuable. So I'm really enjoying just kind of learning in this early part of being with the Orioles and trying to plug in how can I help with the actual experience that comes from playing the game. If you watch the Yankee game, that one inning where everything kind of imploded, you could actually look at that and say that's sort of a microcosm of other areas, that it's very important how you win close games is you don't make these kind of mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes aren't so obvious that are out there on the field. So I've really enjoyed immersing myself in that. But I'm particularly interested in collecting that data at the youth level and how you then can help to teach, because part of youth baseball is not just teaching them how to win and how to be competitive and like in a hard sort of competitive. There's also sportsmanship. How do you win? How do you lose? How do you respect the other team? You know, and how do you develop as an individual player? When I first got in, my son was 8, and I retired when my son was 8, so I could be one of the coaches on his team. We're playing against another team, and at 8 years old, you really can't get the ball over home plate. You can't really do much. You know, there's a lot of walking and running the bases, and then over-cheering, over-stimulating, and all that kind of stuff, and the kids really haven't learned anything. So the coach on the other side was yelling out there. Our pitcher, you know, walked the guy on 4 pitches. Then the next hitter came up, and he said, he threw a ball, and he goes, that's 5 pitches in a row that he threw for a ball. Then there's 6 pitches, and he goes, and that's 7 pitches. So I yelled over at him. I go, are you talking to your hitter, or are you talking to our pitcher? Because who couldn't, as a 40-year-old, get inside the head of an 8-year-old and kind of mess him up? And that's what they were doing. He said, don't swing the bat, get on the bases, run around, and then, you know, all the runs start scoring, everybody cheers, and our kids, you know, my pitcher is crying. And I step back and I go, we like to teach the kid how to hit. So if the kid's not throwing pitches for strikes, it's not a strategy just to walk. You know, 3-0, who cares about 3-0, you get the green light or not? Give them a chance to swing the bat and feel what it feels like to hit the ball. You know, that sort of simple analysis. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the competitive part of it. And I think it's so important to remember that sports does teach you things about life, and you can develop in that time frame. And there's so many other things that are important that you can teach. And from an instructional sense, they do rely on the data, you know, to understand, or the video, you know, to watch. It is an aid in which you can communicate a good message. So I'm really happy that things are moving in that direction.
I think you touched on a bunch of stuff that I think makes Ripken baseball pretty special. And certainly the mechanics and the details of the game for sure. But I think what Blitz, you and I talked about is sort of what you represent for the game and sort of the mental side of it. You mentioned just now, and I'm going to use this because I'm from Boston, the Yankee implosion. I heard you mention that, so it seems worth diving into here for a second while we have the time. So let's talk a little bit about Aaron Judge. Why don't we? So obviously, massive, massive year, and then equally massive struggles in the playoffs. And I'm going to tie this now, based on what you said, back to youth sports a little bit. What we witnessed there was more mental than physical, right? I bet there are kids all over the world watching who could say, I know what that feels like, right? I know what it feels like to be lost out there. What is Ripken baseball, or what is even Cal Ripken, what do you say to either guys in the bigs or even kids when they're going through that? How do you get through it?
Again, there's no one right answer to do that. I was talking to a former teammate today, and we were talking about the differences in playing in the playoffs and difference in playing the regular season. And it is a mental exercise because the game essentially is the same. And I think sometimes you try too hard or you can't control the adrenaline that's coming through you, and you want to do it so bad that you end up playing a little bit outside of how you normally play. And learning how to live in that environment and then still play the way you normally play during the season is part of understanding. I played through a time when the Yankees had a dynasty where they were winning all the time. Derek Jeter, I think a bad year for Derek Jeter was losing in the first round of the playoffs. So they made the playoffs every year. They won many World Series titles. And if you look at that team, and then we came back to being good in the 96, 97, and we were competitive. We beat the Yankees from the first day of the season to the last in the 97 season. But when it came down to the playoffs, they were super comfortable being in that environment, and not all of our team was really comfortable. And the way you win is not because who wants it the best, it's who executes the best. The Dodgers executed really well in this series, got runners in from third with less than 2 out, sacrificed flies, put balls in play, made the key defensive plays that allowed them to win those games that gathered the momentum. And I just rambled, and I don't know where I'm going with that last part.
Something about Aaron Judge struggles. That's what I
Oh,
remember.
Aaron Judge. So when I look at Aaron Judge or whatever else, the greatest player, the numbers that he puts up, you can't get there without him. And many times the team will develop a strategy not to necessarily give him the same opportunities in a shorter series, and yet you want to do it so bad that you'll expand the strike zone a little bit, thinking I'm good enough where I can swing at pitches, even though they're not giving me the good pitches. And I think once you play it enough times, you realize that if they're not going to pitch to me, then I'll put the bat down and the next guy will do it. And once you start to get that mentality, like the Yankees did in their dynasty with us, they laid it down and whatever else for the next person, and they were comfortable, playing that way, and therefore they had that kind of success.
Blitz, you've made so many great bets in your professional career.
I am not allowed to gamble, and I do not.
And the interesting thing to me about youth sports is there is some negativity out there, right? There's some haters out there, some people saying that, boy, like we are struggling to get the youth involved, right, at the grassroots level now. You're apparently still pretty bullish on it. Why are you such a believer in youth sports even now today?
Well, look, in every business I've ever been involved in, you're going to have people that are going to be, take a contrarian view or this is what you're not doing right or et cetera. So, you're going to see that in anything. But I think the reality is youth participation is up. There's no question across the board in sports. And it's great for the kids. I mean, I think, I don't know, a large number of people in this audience have children who played sports growing up, played themselves. Like, it's amazing. It's great for your physical health. It's great for your mental health. It's great to learn how to play with teammates. To Cal's point, it's great to learn to, to fail sometimes. And how do you pick yourself up? And so, I am highly confident that the growth overall in youth participation in youth sports is going to be very attractive as far as one can project, so for our lifetimes. So then the question becomes, how can we do it better? How can we get more kids on the field playing more sports? One of the things that does bother me is I think kids are specializing too early. And their coaches are telling them, you're great at X. You need to play that all year long. No, you should be playing something in the fall, something different in the winter, something different in the spring. Doesn't mean you can't still, specialize a little bit, but like kids should be playing everything. And they should be out there and they should be learning. And so we just constantly think about how can we do this? A, how can we do it better? And then B, how can we get more kids into the funnel? And at the end of the day, I think we're doing that, and we can continue to do it even better, and we will.
All right, we have about 1 minute left here, so real quick, we'll go one question for each of you. Samir, a year from now, what will be the most popular app for youth?
Well, I'm not allowed to say GameChanger, so TikTok or any short-form video, it is still ascendant, and we may not love attention span shrinking, but everything's a sound bite or a video bite, so probably that kind of thing.
Cal, Juan Soto will be a free agent starting at 5 o'clock Eastern today. Will he get north of $600 million, and will he stay with the Yankees?
I think that you should have asked David Rubenstein that question when he was here earlier. I mean, it's funny to me is that when baseball started going, I was one of the early guys to get $1 million a year, and you signed a four-year, $4 million contract, and you thought you were rich, you know. And then the older ball players that played beforehand, they would say we had to work in the off season, we couldn't do this, and so every generation that plays through, you kind of look at the next generation of players and said, God, I wish I played in that era. I certainly wish I played in this era right now. But I think it's great. I mean, the economics, you know, kind of move themselves. You know, it is what it is, and it's hard to rationalize that somebody playing a game can make that much money, right? But they are the best in the world at doing what they do, and that's what the market calls for. So when I see someone like Soto, and he's so young, which makes him really more valuable in the free agent market right now, because many times you pay for what the past performances are, not the future ones. But with Juan Soto, you're gonna pay him now, but you're actually gonna get value into the future. So you're gonna get a good investment. But I don't know. It still seems kind of high, going 700 million, but maybe 600.
All right, Blitz, last question. Your Washington Commanders beat the New York Giants yesterday, 7-2, first in the NFC East. Jaden Daniels playing like an MVP, certainly Rookie of the Year. So the obvious question, how much credit do you get for drafting Jaden Daniels?
I could give a lot of really funny answers, but the answer is 0. Our front office did an amazing job, and they had lots of great quarterbacks to be looking at, and we were obviously extremely lucky to have the 2 pick, which meant, you know, you're either getting your first choice or your second choice. And I think they're very happy with their choice. I think we all are, and the city is, and it's great for football.
All right, guys, thanks. We appreciate your time. Thanks, guys.